All right, folks, before we get to our friend Bill Kristol, award-winning author and renowned poet and civil rights activist Dr. Maya Angelou has died. She was found dead in her Winston-Salem, North Carolina home today. She was 86 years old, and of course, she rose from poverty as a child in St. Louis and Arkansas to become a cultural icon, and gained widespread acclaim for her first book, her autobiography, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. And of course, she directed the film down in the Delta. She also starred in a movie, and she also, of course, spoke at inauguration. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, she was the one who allegedly coined the phrase that Bill Clinton was the first black president. But then she explained that, and she said that she never actually said that, or never meant it in the way that it was interpreted by the media and so many others. So Maya Angelou, dead at the age of 86. One note before we get to Bill Kristol, I find this to be a colossal waste of time. The NFL commissioner is headed to the White House. He should teach Barack Obama how to pronounce some of the football players' names, perhaps. But now they're going to discuss concussions in sports. According to the Washington Post, he will join President Obama and 200 sports officials, parent activists, experts, you name them, for the first White House summit on sports concussions. Now, look, I have a kid who plays baseball, hockey, you name it, okay, 14-year-old. And concussions are always of a great concern to me. But do we really need the White House and the president to sit there? Should the NFL commissioner not be policing his own league, as he's done better than previous commissioners? I mean, we need these people to get together, the president and the NFL commissioner, to talk about concussions? If the NFL wants to do it, fine. Get all the doctors and experts you want. But the president, shouldn't he have better things to do? Aren't there more important things? For this president, I don't know. And someone who might agree with that is our friend Bill Kristol. First, I want Bill Kristol to listen to a part of Barack Obama talking in Afghanistan.
Having consulted with Congress and my national security team, I've determined the nature of the commitment that America is prepared to make beyond 2014. Our objectives are clear: disrupting threats posed by al-Qaeda, supporting Afghan security forces, and giving the Afghan people the opportunity to succeed as they stand on their own. Here's how we'll pursue those objectives. First, America's combat mission will be over by the end of this year.
All right, that wasn't in Afghanistan. Obviously, that was after he came back, and that was about Afghanistan. And joining us now is Bill Kristol, the founder and editor of the Weekly Standard, ABC News contributor. Hey, Bill.
Hey, Steve. How are you?
I'm fine. So
I want to say a word about your excellent point about the NFL commissioner.
Yeah.
I mean, what made me think of that, it's a medical problem, concussions. It's not clear that the president has much to add to this discussion. But, you know, it's striking that he's taking the time to do that. What's a medical issue that he hasn't had time to deal with over 2 years, has never met with the man responsible who works for him? That's the Veterans Affairs Agency, where he is supposed to be in charge. That's a part of the healthcare system that the government runs directly. Eric Shinseki is his cabinet secretary. That's something where he learned about what was the problem from the newspapers. Maybe he could spend a little more time running the federal government and preventing vets from being denied treatment, and a little less time, you know, grandstanding on some issue that's in the headlines, which there's no evidence the federal government has any particular role in.
You know, I got to tell you, Bill, the more I hear from this man, I just think he's faking the whole thing. I've documented that he's faking being a White Sox fan. Because really, I mean, he doesn't know anything. He couldn't name. He mispronounced Comiskey Park. The whole thing. He couldn't name a player when asked. He's faking that. He mispronounces whenever there's a team there. He mispronounces their names. Did it with the Red Sox. Did it with the Dolphins team that went undefeated. I mean, he's faking it. I just think he's faking the whole presidency.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of truth to that, but it's unfortunately, you know, we how should I put it? You know, he's the only president we have, and the actual decisions he makes in the course of his, you know, what's a giant PR effort basically and a political effort, have real consequences. I mean, people haven't focused enough. Excuse me, 1 second. People haven't focused enough, I think, on how amazing it is that he's drawing everyone out of Afghanistan when in 2016. I mean, whatever you think about whether we should get out, stay in, have 10,000 troops, have 20,000 troops, once you decide to go down to 10,000, it seems to me any normal president, if I can put it that way, would say, look, I'm going to go to 10,000. I'm going to see what happens. I'm going to, into 2016, I will consult with my successor or successors, the two candidates. I want to leave things for them, give them the most options possible. And so I'm not going to commit right now to what I'll do in 2016, because we'll have to play that by ear. That would be what any president would have done. That's what George W. Bush did, incidentally, before handing over to Barack Obama. He, in effect, arranged things in terms of his possible surge in Afghanistan. He didn't do it. He wanted to do it. He left that up to the next president. On Iraq, he kind of stabilized the situation, left the decisions up to the next president. That's what you do if you're a responsible president. He wants to make sure, I guess, that the next president, that we have no chance of success in Afghanistan, that we basically make all the sacrifices, I'm afraid, almost inevitably, maybe not inevitably, but likely for not, by insisting on a zero number, basically, except for the troops who will guard the embassy. And why? What's the rationale? The rationale is that he's leaving office, and he wants to be able to say that he got all the troops out of Afghanistan. It's all about him. It's not about the country. It's not about the mission.
Now, I mean, here's a guy who said that he doesn't like to use the word victory. He said that to ABC News early on in his first term. Do you believe that he's, in effect, surrendering to the Taliban?
I think I think the effect of it might unfortunately be the civil war, or the Taliban coming back into control of parts of the country. Look, we might get lucky. The U.S. military has done a heck of a job mopping up an awful lot of al-Qaeda and Taliban, so maybe they can hang on, but it's totally irresponsible to put this zero number out there for 2016. And that's not based even on an ideology of surrender, honestly. That's based on an ideology of, I want to be able to give a speech before I leave office saying we're out of the wars I inherited, period. I think it's entirely politics, not even politics in the sense of I want to help the Democrats in 2016. I'm not sure this is really good for Hillary Clinton. Just politics in the sense of I'm thinking about the stories that are going to be written about me, and it's all about him. I guess that's what most upset me, really, about his speech yesterday and on Afghanistan, and also the West Point speech today. I mean, it's not a serious attempt to come to grips with the world as it is. It's all about him.
It's all about his legacy.
It's all about
as he sees it. Yeah, as he sees it.
But it's all even just posturing and PR, because his real legacy, I'm afraid, is going to be pretty miserable. I mean, that's what's amazing. He thinks he can just kick the can down the road. Hopefully nothing horrible happens before January 20th, 2017. And then I guess he thinks people will just forget about the implications of the policies he's adopted with respect to Afghanistan, Iraq, Iran, and other places.
Well, let's listen to a little bit of what he said in West Point today regarding terror.
For the foreseeable future, the most direct threat to America, at home and abroad, remains terrorism. But a strategy that involves invading every country that harbors terrorist networks is naive and unsustainable. I believe we must shift our counterterrorism strategy, drawing on the successes and shortcomings of our experience in Iraq and Afghanistan, to more effectively partner with countries where terrorist networks seek a foothold.
All right. Now, I mean, again, I know it's a foreign policy speech, and he was going to outlay some things going forward, but to me, and I don't know how significant this is. I'd love to hear what you have to say. Again, it goes with, hey, we're going to be out of Afghanistan by this date. We're going to leave here at this date. And now he's telling terrorists and terrorist groups in foreign nations, hey, you know what? We're not coming after you anymore because it's ridiculous. So, I mean, why don't you just shut up, say we're going to continue to fight terror. We may change our tactics, but I'm not going to sit here and telegraph them to our enemies. Instead, he telegraphs them to our enemies.
Well, because he wants to give a speech in which he can say there's now an Obama doctrine. He can brief columnists and say he's made a very thoughtful adjustment. It's a ridiculous adjustment. Unfortunately, the terrorist groups across a wide swath of northern Africa and the Persian Gulf are getting stronger, not weaker. And I believe this announcement, unfortunately, will strengthen terrorist groups in Afghanistan itself. And I'm excuse me, I've got this cough. And I'm afraid in Pakistan, I mean, think about, I gather there's a good piece up by Fred Kagan today, or by an associate of Fred Kagan today, pointing out that we seem to have taken a knee on the fight against the Pakistan-based terror groups for the last several months. No drone attacks, not much activity. We're not doing so. All of this, I mean, he can say all he wants that, well, of course we can't invade every country. Well, who's proposing that? But concretely, is the terror threat from Pakistan and Afghanistan going to get greater or less because of what President Obama announced yesterday and because of what he said today? I'm really afraid there's only one plausible answer, and that it's going to get greater.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. What about this outing of the CIA bureau chief in Afghanistan? And you know, I get really sick when I hear the analogy and the comparisons and the equivocation that, oh, this is just like Valerie Plame. Valerie Plame was sitting in an office and was retired. This guy's out in Afghanistan, and now he's in danger, his family's in danger, and oh, it's just the same thing. And if it were the same thing, where's the media outrage that they exhibited towards Valerie Plame's quote-unquote outing? Because I don't see it here.
Yeah, I mean, it was obviously a mistake, an error. I suppose it could happen in any administration, so I'm not, blaming Obama personally for that. But you're right, the media cavalier attitude towards this, or the comparison, the ludicrous comparison with Valerie Plame, is a good reminder of their insanity about Bush. And they're still, for all this, 6 years in, for all that they basically know that Obama's policies are failing in a bunch of ways, they're still, they still cut him a break. There's still no serious effort to look at the implications and consequences of his policies. Because if you looked at them seriously, it wouldn't just be an indictment of Obama. It would be an indictment of modern liberalism, both at home and abroad. And the liberal media are not interested in really seeing what the real-world consequences of modern liberal policies are.
No, absolutely. What do you this veterans scandal that you alluded to at the beginning? Now there's stories that Texas, one of the whistleblowers says Texas, the VA there is run like a crime syndicate. We know about similar stories down in Miami. And what's worse, Bill, is that we know that Obama knew about these problems. He talked about them. He talked about them when he was running. His transition team was made aware. Yet again, this I found out on CNN, and the media, unfortunately, is giving him a pass.
Well, don't worry, because this is government-run health care, and Paul Krugman says that the VA is really a model for the rest of us. So but I think the media on this one is beginning to pay attention. CNN actually did some of the reporting following our friends here in Washington at the Washington Examiner, who did excellent reporting. We've done excellent reporting on this. But I just today, Mike Warren was just on the phone with the Arkansas senator's office. My mind has gone totally. Senator
Pryor,
office.
yeah.
Yeah. And there are ads up in Arkansas now pointing out that Pryor's on the appropriations subcommittee that oversees the VA. Why has he been so detached about this? And now he's come out in support of this bill that would at least begin to sort of fix accountability problems at the VA, a bill that Harry Reid won't let come to the floor of the Senate. I guess it was Senator Udall, I think, today, that is the first Democrat now to call for Shinseki to step down. That tells me that the VA scandal is breaking through. They've got polling, they've got data,
right.
They've got the sense that this is hitting this is way out there now. And I think this one they can't put back in the bottle. This is a big scandal for this administration.
Gerald Molen, the producer of Schindler's List, who's Dinesh D'Souza's producer on his documentaries, he said, why not give everybody a card? Give every veteran a card and let them go to any hospital they want.
Well, Mitt Romney proposed a version of this and, of course, was ridiculed in 2011 and 2012. If you don't like the VA care, get a voucher card that give you the equivalent level of care at a private or public hospital of another kind. Obviously, it's like Medicare or something.
All right, Bill, thank you, sir. Always great to talk to you.
Great talking to you.
Thank you. Bill Kristol, ladies and gentlemen, Weekly Standard, ABC News. When we come back, it is the Malzberg panel, and it's going to be Seton Motley and C. Edmund Wright, so don't miss it. Next on the Steve Malzberg Show.